Congratulations on the movie.
Oh, thanks so much.
It's a really likable movie, and it's more than just being likable. It's about something as well. But I like the way that the movie finds its balance between, the civil rights issues that are addressed, and the love story, and the music story. And I think the film balances all this really well. Was that something that developed during shooting, or was that in the original script that you saw?
I think that they had a really good hold on it in the original script. I think when I came on board, the one thing that I wanted to do was maybe to bump up the comedy a tiny bit, just to make sure that element of it did work, because I think if you're aiming for it, you certainly want it to pay off. But it's a tough one. I mean, it's a hard thing to get right, those three things that you just talked about. And I feel like the film really does that. And I think it's important because sometimes when you watch films about like a suppressed or oppressed community, they can always feel like they're victims all the time, and it's I'm not sure if the community itself necessarily enjoys itself being depicted as that, even though there's that element of we're glad that the story's been told. It's like, yeah, we don't want to be victim of all the fucking, we have fun, like we're powerful, amazing people, and I think that the movie does a great job of doing that, and it's a tough trick to pull off.
Were you aware of the Australian Aboriginal story before you got this script?
Yeah, I mean, I knew probably not as much as I should have, but I knew bits and pieces, and I knew about the stolen generation stories and things like that. But I kind of educated myself a little bit more as time went on.
Stolen generation stuff, that happened here as well with our Aboriginal community. Right. And the stolen generation stuff, if it wasn't historical record, sounds like it couldn't possibly be true.
Oh, it sounds like it's Darth Vader stuff. Yeah. And what's extraordinary about it is it's essentially like ethnic cleansing, and it sounds like it's 150 years ago, but this is in the 60s in a first world country. I mean, it's really, it's so bizarre.
Well, I saw this a couple of weeks ago, so the wording's not clear in my head, but doesn't it say at the beginning of the film that Australian Aborigines were considered flora and fauna up until 1967 or 66?
Right.
Or something?
Yeah, even later, I think, maybe in 71 or something like that. It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Like they're just rocks in the background of somebody else's country.
Tell me a little bit about creating this cartoon. You said, finding you wanted to bump up the humor a little bit. In the early sequences, we certainly see that, but then the tone of the movie shifts a little bit. And so tell me about just finding that in your performance, finding a way to keep your character true to himself, even though things are changing in his life. You're in Vietnam for part of it, and your circumstances change.
That's the most important bit. The circumstances change rather than necessarily the character for much of the film. And I always thought that, and in every job, it feels like the comedy that I'm most drawn to is stuff where you believe what's happening rather than kind of silliness. Or I never wanted it to be like I'm doing jokes, like the character is doing jokes, but rather the situations are extraordinary. And his take on it, is going to be funny, but it's not because it's a well-written punchline. It's because he's a funny character. Right. So I felt like if you believe him and he's honest, and I play it truthfully, then you're going to believe him when he ends up in a bad situation. Right. And you're not going to be like, that's the guy I'm laughing at. I can't, cry with him. Right. So that's good. And I think, that's the world I like doing anyway.
Were you familiar with the music? Are you, do soul music? Does that play any part in your life at all, and outside of your character in the film?
Only as a voyeur or as a listener. Yeah. But not until I was like in a late teen or kind of in my early 20s that I started really listening to soul music. I was much more of a folky kind of a guy growing up, and my dad used to play like guitar in pubs, singing like country and western music. Right. So I feel like my whole speech that I do about country and western music and bitching about that is something that's been pending up in me since I was 14. Carrying his guitar case to listen to bad Merle Haggard tracks.
So, was that something were you embarrassed by? Because when you're that age, your parents aren't cool when you're that age, right?
Not at all. And I wonder if he had been like an amazing like Al Green-esque songster, if I would still, this is so lame. Like, I wonder sometimes with those kind of people whose parents are. Well, weirdly, I've been working with Rashida Jones, and I'm like, how can you not think your dad is cool?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not sure if I ever got around to asking her that question, but I mean, country and western is a very easy thing to deride.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my first jobs was I was a radio announcer, and I was like, right on. I was 16 years old, and I was making some extra money.
Nice.
But I got stuck doing a country show on every Saturday, and I didn't know anything about the music, and it wasn't ideal, but whatever.
I don't know what it is. It is such a funny thing that it's such a white music. I mean, it's just so white. There's nothing whiter than country and western music, which is kind of odd. I don't know why that is, but so it's nice that it was one of the changes that I asked to bring in when we were talking about the script the first time is to connect this. There was no thing in the script at the time to connect it all. So I wrote this little speech about country and western music is about loss, but soul music is also about loss. And all of that, and that has a nice payoff, I think, in the film.
Yeah, I like that speech because it's country music is about loss, and isn't soul music is about sort of aspiring to.
Yeah, it's kind of like you've lost, but you haven't given up.
Yeah,
a country music, it's kind of whiny.
Yeah.
Country and western music is like he left me, and now what am I going to do in my life? Whereas soul music is like I'm going to get that fucker back.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Which is kind of nice, and I think it's a nice turning point in the film where we're not going to feel sorry for ourselves, which I think is what the whole is. I don't know what the word would be like, but it's an important element for the entire story. That it's not about feeling sorry for yourself; it's about moving on.
Right. I'm just to get off to. I'm still going to find that you're fascinated by the idea that your dad played country and western music in pubs.
Yeah.
You grew up in Ireland, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and see, I would not have pegged that Merle Haggard would have been.
Country and western music is huge in Ireland.
Really?
Oh yeah, huge. I guess I don't know why, but it is. I remember it was all Chris Christopherson and a bit of Willie Nelson, I guess, and Clint Black. Was that a guy?
Yeah.
And all those kind of guys, and Dad was really into it, and it was all. I just remember all those tapes, like hundreds and hundreds of tapes. I don't know why that is, but it's really big in Ireland, country and western music. Maybe it's got some kind of, like all of those kind of musics, they kind of merge into other little bits, and like I guess maybe country and western music has some origins in like bluegrass, and I think that bluegrass has origins in Irish music.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some kind of thing going on there.
Yeah.
And the Irish people love a good wine.
Yeah.
We're great at it. We're the whitest people in the world.
Do you work in Ireland at all? I mean, now that you're because I know the IT crowd, and then the other films that we've seen you in recently, all shot outside. Do you want to go back and work?
I'm shooting there now, actually.
Right.
I kind of made a decision after the Bridesmaids and everything went kind of crazy that the next thing that I should do for myself would be to write a show set in my hometown. Yeah. So I've done that. So that starts on TV like next week.
Wow.
But at the moment we're shooting the second series of it.
Really?
So it's a kind of autobiographical story set in 1990 in my hometown, about a kid with an imaginary friend. And and I hope it's good. I really like it.
Yeah, well. So is it important for you to have that, to be signed on as a writer and producer and sort of guide yourself that way rather than, I don't know what you call it, actor for hire, more, going out, you want to initiate the project?
I think I'll definitely start creating a lot more. Yeah. And just being at the top end of the genesis of things, because it does connect you to them a lot more than anything else. And so I imagine that will happen. I don't know if I'll direct, maybe in the future, but I certainly will be writing a lot more and producing more stuff.
Yeah. Chris?
Hey, thanks so much.
Thanks so
that was
much,
really
Randy.
fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you. Yeah.